All right, welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're going to trace the historical roots of a conflict that, let's be honest, shook the entire world. To really understand it, you've got to listen closely for the echoes of a fallen empire. See, to make any sense of what's happening right now, we have to rewind the clock, because this whole story, it definitely doesn't start where most people think it does. Nope. It didn't just kick off with all those shocking headlines about missiles and tanks that flooded our screens. The fuse for that explosion, well, that was lit a long, long time ago. The real roots of this go much, much deeper. We're talking about something huge, a seismic event, really. The collapse of a global superpower. So let's get into it. Where does this story really begin? It all starts with the ghost of an empire, and a moment in time that literally redrew the map of the world. All right, Section 1, the echo of an empire. You know, back in the early 90s, the entire geopolitical landscape just completely changed. And believe me, the aftershocks from that, we are still feeling them right now. So picture this, it's 1991, and the Soviet Union just dissolves. It's gone. And out of its ruins, 15 brand new countries pop up on the map. And one of those was a newly independent Ukraine, finally free from Moscow's thumb after centuries. But here's the thing. Independence wasn't as simple as just swapping out one flag for another. Not at all. What it really did was expose this deep, fundamental crack, a historical fault line that had been running right through the heart of the nation for ages. And that brings us to our next point. This inherited division is absolutely crucial to understanding everything that follows. Because Ukraine wasn't just one single unified place. Think of it more like a nation with two powerful currents, pulling it in completely opposite directions. So you've basically got two Ukraines living inside one border. On one side, you have a part of the country that's always looked west, toward Europe. Its identity is tied to a future with Western institutions. But then, on the other side, you've got a region with incredibly deep historical, cultural, and language ties to Russia. It's this constant push and pull. Okay, so you've got this internal tug of war. But it gets even more complicated, because this whole thing was just massively amplified by outside forces. Ukraine basically became the centerpiece of a huge geopolitical chess match between Russia and the West. And this is where you really see the two worlds collide. From the West's point of view, NATO expanding eastward was a no-brainer. It's a defensive alliance, right? It was about securing these new democracies. But Russia saw it completely differently. To them, NATO's expansion looked like a direct threat, an encroachment right up to their borders. And Ukraine? Well, Ukraine was caught smack in the middle. So you've got all this pressure building up for years, this internal identity crisis and the external geopolitical squeeze. And then you get to 2014. That was the tipping point. That's when all these simmering tensions just ignited. And wow, did things happen fast. First, you have these huge pro-European protests in Kyiv. They end up toppling the pro-Russian government. Then a new pro-Western leadership steps in, and Russia's reaction? It was swift, and it was decisive. They moved in and annexed the Crimean Peninsula. And here's the really crucial part. The annexation of Crimea? That wasn't the end of it, not even close. It was the beginning of something else. In eastern Ukraine, a war ignited, a war that would just smolder for the next 8 years. And that brings us to this idea of an unfinished war. For the next 8 years, a brutal, grinding conflict just chewed up eastern Ukraine. But for a lot of the world, it just kind of faded from the headlines. It became a forgotten conflict. You know, the world kept calling it a conflict, or a crisis, or a dispute, all these soft words. But if you were on the ground, living through it, there was nothing soft about it. It was war, plain and simple. And that is why 2022 is so important to understand in context. The full-scale invasion wasn't the start of a new war. It was a massive, shocking escalation of a war that had been going on all along. So what's the big takeaway here? It's that today's war is not some new random event. It's a direct continuation of these historical fractures. It's fueled by these unresolved questions of identity, it's shaped by competing geopolitical interests, and ultimately, it is an echo of a fallen empire. Which really just leaves us with this one big question to think about. When empires fall, do their echoes ever truly fade away? It kind of makes you realize that history doesn't just end, it reverberates, it shapes our present in ways we're only just starting to get our heads around.